I'm just going to make the announcement here. Yes, ma'am. Good evening. The time is 7 o'clock. I welcome each one of you to the regular Town Council meeting of Town of Sunnyvale for August 12th. This is the first Town Council meeting for the month. So at this time, we have a special guest. I want to invite Bishop Matthew. Sorry, I just lost it. Hanson, sorry, sir. Bishop Matthew Hanson of Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for the invocation. Susan, does that mic work? Yeah. We're working on the AV system. Should be ready in the next several weeks.
Our dear Father in heaven, we come before Thee this evening in humility and gratitude and express our appreciation unto Thee for the many freedoms that we enjoy in this country and for those that have sacrificed at great cost to preserve those freedoms. We're thankful for the wonderful town of Sunnyvale, the community that we live in. We're grateful for those who devote and sacrifice much time to lead and to guide us. We thank Thee, Father, for those first responders that watch over and protect us. We're grateful to the mayor and the town council and for their leadership and their careful considerations of the concerns that face our town. Grateful also for the concerned citizens who devote much time and energy to making this a better place and a healthier and stronger community. Father, we at this time ask that we might have Thy Spirit to be with us. Help us this evening as we consider issues of importance to our community, that we may do so in a spirit of civility and cooperation, focused on finding pragmatic solutions that will bless individuals and families. This time we are mindful of our students and teachers as they prepare to return to school. Please be with them, watch over, protect them. Help us that we may all do what we can to strengthen and protect the youth and children here in our community. Father, again, we express our love and gratitude unto Thee and ask for Thy guidance through the course this evening, and do so in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop. One more time. Please join me standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Again, I know the AV system is somewhat working, but the video is not working. We recognize the problem. Our staff is working diligently to get a new system in place. So in the next few weeks, you should have the new AV system, which will enhance the quality of the experience and the experience here. So please bear with us. So at this time, it's the time for public forum. I want to make an announcement about a couple of changes happening. Next week, next council meeting onwards, there will be an additional agenda item titled Announcements. This is an opportunity for council members and town manager to make announcement not necessarily connected with the agenda. So that will be a change. The second thing is, in our effort to be more inclusive and to take input from the citizens, we will be allowing public comments on every agenda item. But we got to be mindful about the logistics and the process. So we put together something. So there is a sheet outside. It says Public Comment Forum. So if you are here to provide comments for or against for any of the items, we ask that you fill up this form, and the forms are kept outside on the table, and turn that to the town secretary before the council meeting. And then the secretary will give the form to me so that I could call upon each one of you. And there are some requirements, details behind it. There's a 3-minute limit for the comments, and your information will be a public record because you are filling in your name and address, so just kind of information. Okay. So at this time, I am going to ask council if you have any announcements to make. Okay, I'm going to turn over to town manager, Ms. Guthrie.
Just two things. One was just a reminder that agenda item 4 will be removed from the agenda. So if anyone's here to speak on that item, just to note that that's the speed hump policy item. So if you're here to speak on that item, we're going to move it to the next meeting, and our apologies for that. And then the other is just a reminder of the opportunity to apply to serve on a board or a commission. The deadline is approaching for that, and we just really want to encourage those who are interested to put in an application for that, and that can be found on the city website.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, so as mentioned, the item number, the town, the speed calming policy, I should say, right? Traffic calming or traffic or speed hump policy will be discussed on August 26th. Susan is right. There are several boards and commissions or citizens committee. We know Sunnyvale is blessed with so many educated, experienced, qualified citizens. We need your input. So there are many, many committees. There's something our fire chief is working on. It's called a Citizens Emergency Response Team. This is a group of volunteers work with the police chief, the fire chief, to assist on situations of emergency situations. So there are many. If you like to serve in any capacity, please get with the town secretary or town manager or myself, and we will offer you different opportunities to participate. Okay, so now I'm going to open up the public forum. If anyone from the audience would like to come and speak to the council, please come forward. So next week onwards, we'd like you to fill up this form. Okay, now nobody's coming forward, so I'm going to close the public forum. So next is the time for recognition. So we live in a very special town, right? And there's a lot of people who look out for each other. And today, we'll be recognizing two people, Tonya Oregon, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Carly Bain. So I'm going to invite our chief, Kendrick, to come forward and give some details behind their heroic efforts. Hey, Chief, would you mind using the mic? Yeah, that way there are a lot of people out there listening to the streaming, and I want to make sure they hear it.
Okay, tonight I appreciate it, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have an opportunity, as you spoke of, the citizens stepping forward in this community and helping us out. On July the 10th, around 3 o'clock, we got a call of a possible drowning of a young child. Prior to our arriving, there's two citizens that actually pulled the child out of the pool. Another citizen administered CPR until we got there. Once the fire crews arrived, we took care of and helped assisted with the breathing. Once they got there, the citizens were able to get some of the breathing done in the heart. So the first time with the CPR and stuff was a tremendous start of a good outcome. So the fire crews took the patient, put her in the box, gave her some more medicine, took care of her, called for a helicopter because they knew that it was a critical time. They called for the helicopter at that time, still administering aid to the child. Helicopter arrived, took care of the patient, and flew that child to Children's Hospital in Dallas. So, you know, the crew and the two fine ladies here tonight, we'd like to recognize them on behalf of the fire department and the mayor and council in the town of Sunnyvale. And also, Mayor, if you would, I'd like for the crews to come up here too. They happen to be here working today, so they're here tonight. They can assist you in helping administer the...
Absolutely. Please come forward. So since the AV is not working, I'm just going to read what's written in the certificate. Recognition and appreciation is certificate of recognition and appreciation is awarded to Tonya Aragon and Carly Bain for her successful life-saving effort in saving a human life, which involved exceptional courage and performance, presented by the town of Sunnyvale on August 12th, 2019. So please come forward.
Mayor, what I'd like to also add that we got a report that the child's made a full recovery as well.
Once again, thank you very much for your heroic efforts. Appreciate you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda items 1 through 3. Council, there are 3 items. One is to consider approval of minutes for the joint special meeting of the Town Council 4B EDC Board for July 22nd, 2019. Consider approval of minutes for the regular meeting of the Town Council for July 22nd, 2019. And consider approval of minutes for the special meeting of the Town Council for August 5, 2019. Would anyone like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 to 3 as presented?
Motion to approve as presented, Mayor?
Motion made by Pro Tem Finch, so second.
And second.
Second by Allen to approve consent agenda items 1 to 3 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. As town manager briefed earlier, item number 4 is tabled. We will bring that up during the second week in August, second council meeting in August. That's on August 26th. Moving on to the finance portion of the agenda, that is to discuss, consider, and act upon placing an ordinance adopting a tax rate on the agenda for first reading on Monday, August 26, 2019, and for second reading and final adoption on Monday, September 9, 2019. Ms. Hopkins?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to be referring to the PowerPoint that's in your package that starts right after the staff memo. We have to circle back to this tax rate. We're going to have to do we're going to have to publish a proposed tax rate. So we had been looking at 4 different options, and the option that is reflected on the page that says current proposed 1920 budget, that is a rate slightly lower than the rollback rate. So you picked up some revenue if you go with that slightly lower than rollback rate. And then the next page has all 4 options that we've been discussing. So in order to get this, as part of this ordinance, we need to determine what our proposed tax rate's going to be. You can propose it, publish it, and you can either adopt it or lower it, but you cannot raise it. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Okay. So at this time, like I said, there's a change in the sequence, so I'm going to ask for public comments. Again, in the future, we'd like you to fill up these forms, but today, this is without a card. Would anyone from the audience would like to come forward and discuss this topic? Okay, no one is coming forward, so I'm going to move on to the close the public comment section. Then I'm going to move on to staff council discussion. Council, are there any questions or discussions on this topic? Okay, if there are no discussions, so this is going to be, going to make a motion here, Susan? That's a special way to read this, right, Susan, or this is a regular? Or just adopting agenda number 5, or there's a special text for this one?
Yeah, if you would say that we're going to, exactly what it says on here, consider and act upon placing an ordinance adopting a tax rate on the agenda for the first reading on the dates that are listed on the agenda item, but state what rate you want us to advertise at.
Okay, so I'm going to read the motion the best I can, right,
And Liz is going to add to that.
And if
let's
you
tell you
don't-
what, do you want to read that motion for us?
Well, let me say this. We probably would need to break it into M&O and INS.
Okay,
So
so we need to vote twice?
so that's what we're going to, I'm going to read this with an M&O and an INS rate.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vade?
Yeah, I don't think we need to read it twice. Why don't I try to make a motion here?
Okay, there you go.
Why don't I move that we adopt a tax rate to be discussed on the agenda for the first reading on Monday, August the 26th, 2019, and for the second reading and final adoption on Monday, September the 9th, 2019. That tax rate to be equal to .456700 per $100 valuation, and that to be made up of an M&O rate of .357000 and an INS rate of .099700.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Wade to approve agenda item number 5. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Finch. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor of the motion signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Moving on to the town manager portion of the agenda. Item number 6, discuss, consider, and act upon a request by Republic Services for an amendment to the current contract for solid waste and recycling services and a fee increase.
Yes, sir. Leslie is the one who's been managing this contract, but she's been kind enough to represent us at Raider 101 tonight, so I'm going to step in for her just to present the item. And I do have Robin Moda here from Republic Services who'll answer any of your questions and add a little bit of information. But if you recall, our contract with Republic became effective in August of 2017, and it continues through January 31st, 2022. That contract has a couple of provisions for changes in it. One is an annual increase in the rate, and then the other is if there's some change in the ability for them to dispose of commodities. And so under this revised contract, they're going to be addressing both of those factors. And the total rate increase, right now, our total rate is $14.12 for residential. And this actually includes the automatic adjustment. So our rate adjustment would go up to $16.67 per month for residential service. And that includes the recycling, curbside recycling. It includes the pickup of bulky items, and it includes your twice-a-week pickup. And as part of this, we had a couple of council members who asked us for a little in-depth look at what other communities of equal size have, and we did a comparison of service levels and rates, and even with this increase, we felt like we were still getting a very equitable deal for our citizens. So with that, I'd like to invite Robin up. She's just going to start off, if you don't mind, with just a little information about the challenges that all communities are going through with recycling right now that's kind of led to this increase that we're facing. And I think we've been prepping you all for this for several months, sending you articles, but it really has gotten to the point where we have to do something. So, Robin?
Good evening. Do I have to get real close? I have a soft voice, so let me know. I'm sharing a presentation in lieu of the.
Closer to the mic.
Yes. In lieu of the AV, I'm sharing a presentation that I'm just going to go over quickly. And it's just to cover some of the some of the recycle challenges that we're facing currently in our market. So thank you for having me, Mayor, Council. We're excited to be here. Did everybody get a copy before I start? So in our market right now, this started about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and there's some significant shifts that occurred in this market. If you go to the second page, that has the pretty pictures on it of the newsprint. Some of these issues started presenting themselves over the past decade, and we are just now catching up with them over on the U.S. side. They've slowly snuck up on us, but over on the China side, which is where that impact is hitting us now, we are seeing those present themselves now. China has, over the past decade, historically taken 40% of America's, or the nation's, but America's commodity. They have decided that they want to lower their contamination rate for their country, and therefore they were taking 5% contaminated bales, and they've lowered that to, they were taking 3% contamination, and now they're taking 0.5%. So that drastically changed the way that we were doing things here in the U.S., the way that we were processing it, the way that we were sending it over on trucks, and the way that they were accepting it. So in short, and we'll get into it, but in short, that changed how we, that impacts us here, not only how you are putting it in your containers, how we're picking it up, but also how we're processing it and sending it over. So I mentioned it's been presenting itself over the past decade, and the steady changes in America, but we haven't really been doing a good job communicating that down the line because it happened quickly over this past 18 months, truthfully. So a few of these examples are newsprint. No one, and maybe not no one, but very few people have newsprint coming to their door. Almost everyone has an iPad. We're getting it on an iPad. We're watching it, seeing it on our computers. But there's our machinery that we're still expensing over capital for 10 years is still in our most of our recycle centers. So another example there is that Tide bottle. Tide is just a great example because most people see that plastic and they think that's recyclable. The new, which it is, that original liquid bottle is. Education now on the new Tide pods. That plastic is made out of the same plastic that your water bottles are. And that orange plastic of the Tide pod container is not recyclable. Let me rephrase. It's recyclable if someone's buying it. No one's buying that thin orange pod container, and therefore it's becoming contamination. And so I'm picking it up as a recyclable material because everyone sees the cute little recyclable emblem. We're processing it. We're taking it to the recycle center. It's being processed. Someone's touching it, and then it's going to the disposal because no one's buying it. You know who wants it is Tide. That's the only people that want that orange plastic container. If I mix those orange plastic containers with clear plastic, it becomes diluted. It's like putting your orange shirt in with your white clothes hamper. No, it's a bad deal. So it's just that piece of education that we need to get in front of and educate to do the right thing. I'm trying to talk quick so we can get through this presentation.
Let me ask you, just for my education.
Absolutely.
So the original container, which has the detergent, right?
Right.
Is that expectation is that people wash that container before they throw in the recycle bin, or throw
So-
it with the
Rinse it out, and then place it in your recycle. Yes, sir.
rinse it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that original container is a thick polyethylene container, and it is very desirable from multiple plastic buyers. And so we can sell it all day long. The new container is a very thin plastic, and so we don't have a buyer for that. Does that answer your question? Okay. So moving along, which everyone knows, the water bottle there listed. As we open water bottles, to open it not over your lap and not over any document or an electronic device, because if you do, it's going to spill over, right? The manufacturers have done an excellent job of engineering it to where you can't add not another pallet, but you can't add a case of water on top of that pallet in that 18-wheeler without it crushing the next, all the way down. So they've done an excellent job, and that's a whole nother discussion. But for us, each water bottle is a transaction. So we need double, it's almost double, the amount of plastic, the amount of water bottles, to provide the same ton of return that we did just 2 years ago. So, as you can imagine, that supply and demand, We're still touching the same number of houses. We're still running the same truck, the same resource. We're still running the same equipment, a little slower now to get it cleaner for China to accept it. But now we need to double that product to get that same return. So the bottom charts there, the main thing that you need to see at this point is just that the lines are going down. Over the past couple years, the price on average of commodities in the market was declining, which meant, back to the water bottle example, we're working twice as hard to make a ton, and that the plastic was going down 40% in a 10-year period. So all the economics and trends in the industry were already headed in a really bad place. And then Republic was kicking off a campaign to educate the field on what to do, and then China made some significant changes and decisions when that happened. So, going to that next slide, number 3, China has an environmental problem and a horrible pollution problem, and they were forced to tighten their inbound acceptable materials that were coming into the country. And so they did this at the end of 2017 and 18, and what they said was 2 big things. And they said the acceptable quality is 3%, which we talked about, and we're going to lower it to 0.5%. And so that 1 ton, which is 2,000 pounds, you're talking about 10 pounds of contamination. Out of 2,000 pounds, we can send over 10 pounds of contamination. They stopped all inbound mixed paper. So your bills, your mail, all of that stuff that we naturally have been trained to take out of the mailbox and turn straight into our recycle bin has now been stopped and can no longer go to China, which they were consuming 40% of. And we were sending those over on ships, which is very beneficial to us because China was already sending over ships to sell their plastics and their goodies that we all buy and consume. And they were sending back empty ships. So for America, it was great because I could sell or I could ship back product cheaper from California to China than I could on a trailer from San Diego up to San Francisco. So it was because it was already going that way. So now with this change, we've just created a supply and demand issue because now we're having to move this product somewhere else and we're having to find a home for it. Let me see, we're going to move to that slide. So on that slide 4, it looks really messy, but it's a really good chart to understand. It's a good eye chart, a good visual chart. So the left-hand chart is 2017, and I want you to focus on the left side, which are the countries and materials. This happens to be plastic, but it's the materials. And then moving to the right side, you see the bluish the bluish band where we're still on the 2017, but on the blue side, it's a really thick. You see China is really thick, and that's what they're accepting. So we're sending all those materials from the U.S. at the top, Japan, Germany. You see all of those going over to China. So you move over to the right side, and you see the second line is China. And that little bitty amount going to China now compared to, because we're still sending it out, we're sending out smaller amounts, but we're still sending product, is now the amount going to China. So you can see how it's pretty much all stopped going to China. So it's not, some material is not going overseas, but for the most part, China is not taking it. The only material that they are taking is high-grade magazine paper, but the residential commodity is gone completely. So we're gonna, and this was at the beginning of 2018. So I'm sorry, at the beginning of 2019. So fast forward to today, these chart, because they were put together in January, the largest band is Malaysia, but if you have followed, I don't expect everyone to be leisurely reading Recycle, but if you have followed or read anything in the news, Malaysia's closing their ports because they weren't ready to take the volumes either. So it creates a huge supply and demand imbalance in the global economy. When we look at the value of the material, on the left side, 2017, 65% of what the world was processing out of our MRFs had a positive value. Some someone would buy it at greater than $0, anywhere in there. When you introduce a supply and demand, normal economic theory like we would have seen in China closing its borders, the right-hand chart, only 35% has a positive value. We're still taking the product, it's just now we have to pay someone to take it. That's the large difference here. So a year ago, where they would have paid me anywhere over zero, whatever it would have been, now I'm paying $100 to get rid of it. Mixed paper is a good example of that. It was about $100 to $120 per bale, and now it's running about negative $15 a bale. Just to give you an idea on that. We can move on to the next slide. The recycle trends is sale of material versus the processing. And, this is commodity price. So that just shows you, this is specific to Sunnyvale. So this is just commodity pricing from our local MRF. We had a recycle center open in Plano in January, which is where your product goes. And this just shows the pricing for commodity, an average of your commodity pricing over the past 2.5 years. And if you continue on, the sale of material versus the processing cost on slide 6. The main thing to grasp on this slide is that the gap continues to widen as we've moved along this year. And these two are local numbers for our Plano Recycle Center. So as we move to this next slide, and it's a busy slide, it's much easier to explain on a presentation with a clicker because our eyes move along. But bear with me, I'm going to walk you through why the original recycle program worked and why there's such challenges now. So this is the old model across the top, and if you'll just work across the horizontally across the top. So, and this is using U.S. averages across the 42 states that we serve. In the early 90s, when we started this recycle program, we partnered with cities and we charge on average $2 for recycle. And we did this because we had an invested goal with the cities to want residents to recycle. We wanted to introduce it. We wanted them to want to recycle. So we introduced it at $2 average per home, while it was $10 to $12 average to provide solid waste. It's the same truck, same house, same route, just picking up the different material. Solid waste was set up properly, somewhere between the $10 and $12 back then, and we consciously had a low value added to the recycle. In the processing facility to run the equipment, pay the staff, and pay the capital down, it was $60 a ton for that processing. The commodity value that we would sell, we would get about $200 per ton. So that's where we would offset the fees and the rate for the haul and for the door-to-door service. So we focused on a shorter list. We had a cleaner material. If y'all remember back when we had a bucket for paper, a bucket for aluminum, a bucket, so everything was much cleaner, and it wasn't the commingled, so we didn't accept as many items, so it was just a narrowed list of material as well compared to today. So we had just a minimal amount of contamination and a minimal amount of residual to work with on the back end. So there you have the $25 at the end, which is the residual and the contamination that there we have to take to the landfill. So if we convert those into real numbers today, or I'm sorry, real numbers in per house, that's the orange line that you have underneath. I know it's a lot. So, because we had enough value in that commodity, which is the 460 that you see, it was able to offset the operation costs. So we weren't having to charge the upcharge in the front because we had that value there to offset it. So if you go down under the pictures, under the collection for now, we're really not charging much difference today versus, in the past. So we've got the $3 compared to the $2 back then. Cost to run the facility now is about $100 per ton. The commodity now is about $80, and right now with the market, it's not going up today. And then the residual is about half because we've trained people, if in doubt, to throw it in rather than if in doubt, to throw it out. We've trained us to be just a little bit lazy. So rather than let's let them handle it. So, and then you've got and because of that, we have the disposal. So the disposal is a little bit higher.
So Robin, let me ask you. So a lot of good details. I think at least I understood the big picture. Do you all want to hear the other details? I'm not stopping you at all.
No.
Any other key points you want to touch on? So basically, your acceptance rate has come down. China's not
has.
taking it, and your processing cost is probably increasing with less recovery. Is what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So just to kind of summarize again, the current residential rate's $14.12. The residential rate with the automatic adjustment that's built into the contract would take us to $14.27. And then going from $14.27 to $16.67 has to do with the change in recycling.
Correct.
So it's a $2.55 increase per month.
I think it's $2.40 over what the baked-in rate is,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I'm just going to open for public comments a second. Okay, so again, this is the time for public comments. If anyone would like to come forward and speak for or against it, please come forward. No one is coming forward, so I'm going to close the public comment section. Council, any question for Republic Service or staff?
Mayor, I've got some questions.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wade?
Robin, good. Thanks for all the information. A couple of questions, though. I understand the 1.5% increase in the solid waste collection. But in reality, when you add the recycling to it, it's a 4.3% increase. Right?
Yes, sir.
So we're bearing that. Now, is that detailed in some provision of the contract that we can change the individual components of the rate as opposed to the rate adjustment that's provided in the contract? So the rate adjustment per contract is 1.5%, but the rate that our residents are actually going to be paying is 4.3% because you've thrown in a new recycle rate, which we haven't had in the past.
Correct.
Okay, so is that somewhere provided in the contract?
It hasn't been in the contract prior to now because this China impact has not been anticipated. This is, in all of the news gatherings, is being claimed as a disaster. And so that's why we're approaching council now.
So you're asking for an amendment to the contract?
Well,
To-
we're asking
Well-
for the amendment in the language to approach council for this. We are.
Okay, and let me just interject. On on the existing contract, there is a provision that would provide for this. It's 4.3B. It says the contract allows for public services to petition the town for additional rate and price adjustments on the basis of material or unusual changes in its cost of operations due to the changes in the recycling industry worldwide, where public has requested an increase in rates. So that's the provision of the contract that would allow them to ask you for this.
Now, what you added at the last, of course, is not in
No,
the language.
that's the reason, yeah.
Okay, so operational cost or unusual changes, we're interpreting that to mean that they can start charging for recycling. And their costs are, they've decided are $6 per house, per resident. Okay. Second amendment to this contract is the change in which the profits are allocated. So previously, they've been your profits. Do I read that correctly, that now that's going to come to the town?
Correct. So we feel that it is right to share moving forward, because historically, it has been the other way. The way we feel, and we will be transparent, that we don't see in the 12, 18 months, 2 years, that there will be a complete change, because there are vendors that are still building new recycle centers at this time. But yes, we do, in that amendment, we have written that 100% of those commodities will be coming back to the town.
Okay. So my major concern is that in past contracts and past, before this amendment, recycling has been a benefit to Republic,
Correct.
okay? Now, it's a benefit, so to speak, to the citizens of Sunnyvale. However, they're paying for that privilege.
Correct.
So if we were to say, well, we don't want to do recycling, we could erase the $6, throw it in with our regular trash, and we could save that money, because I don't think there's any profits in it to be had, or you wouldn't be giving them up, in my opinion. Okay? So we're now paying for the privilege of doing recycling at an additional cost than what you've done it in the past. Now we're having to pay for it. Okay, so I'll just leave that out there to chew on. But second part of this, my concern is we're increasing the cost per house on residential. Why is commercial, per the contract, not receiving any increase?
As of August 1st, in the contract language, industrial and commercial receives a 3% increase.
So why isn't that on your proposal?
It's on the rates were increased 3%.
I
Under
don't
the new
mind.
contract language, Mr. Wade, because it's a fixed increase under the new contract language, it does not require council approval, because it's a fixed increase. So those rates were in there, but because we're approaching council for an out-of-sequence increase, is why we were approaching council.
So what you're saying is, even though it's not on our proposed rate scheduled here, those commercial is receiving a 3% increase?
Those rates are factored in that
Well,
rate sheet.
Robin, I agree with you, I hope, but I'm looking at the rates today, and I'm looking at the rates tomorrow, and they're the same. So I don't see the increase.
I don't have exactly what you're looking at. What I am sure that you're looking at is only the recycle increase to the residents. Oh, I have that.
I would hope that we're looking at what we're going to be charging for everybody.
Let me provide you.
Yes, the page that's in our packet. Yeah. Well, they're the same rates on both pages. So I'm looking at the rates effective August the 1st, and I'm looking at the proposed recycle rates. They're the same. So is there something that says it's not the same? Yes.
So what she's saying is that right here, these are the commercial rates that will be in effect as of August 1st.
So they're not the,
Don't need council approval.
so they're not the current rates.
Those are the rates that,
Well-
as of, here it says rates effective August.
So we are on page 57 maybe, is that right?
It's a little confusing because this is dated August the 1st, and this is August the 12th, and I would assume that we're changing the rates. So it's a little confusing to me to look at what I think is the rates effective today, and then look at the proposed rates, and they're the same.
I apologize for the confusion, but these are the rates that are allowed under contract, the rate increase.
That's
But
the automatic adjustment, right?
Correct, sir.
So
And then-
14.12 to 14.47 is allowed, automatic.
Yes,
But
sir.
there's an extra additional $4.20.
Right, which is the contract amendment, which is in your package.
That's what's for the residential.
Yeah, $2.40.
Yeah, that's right, sorry.
And then the
$2.20.
rates, the rate increase for the commercial, in your packet, in the 1, 2, 3, on that paragraph, it says the current contract also provides for annual fixed increases of 1.5% for residential and 3% for commercial customers. That's 4.3A of the contract. So those are already baked into the rate sheet because they're allowed under current contract. Really, the only thing that's, part of this is transparency so that the residents know that the rates are going up, but also we're coming to you for the recycling component that is outside of the regular contract, although there is a provision that allows them to do it, but we are seeking your approval of the amendment to the contract that allows us to keep recycling if that's what the community so desires, but there is an extra charge to do so.
So the 2.2 is really on the recyclable,
Yes, sir.
recycling portion of it?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a comment. Now, I want to kind of, back on to what Councilman Wade says, but there's one part of this that really, really kind of confuses me. So, I understand if a business isn't profitable, and in order to, because I would kind of disagree. This is a service that I think that our residents want. And if it got to a point that they had to pay a little bit extra for that service, because I would say that, most people on my street do recycle. I know that because you get to see, their cans out, once a week when recycle day comes. What I have a problem with is the fact that we're going to be increasing this amount, right, to make it profitable, which is completely fine, right? This is what businesses are in business to be profitable. But then, instead of you guys taking the profits, you're going to give those profits to us. Whenever you raise someone's bill and I get that money, that's a tax. That's almost exactly what it sounds like. And I keep in mind, I understand it's profits, but if we're going to be raising rates to make this business profitable, it seems to me like you guys should be getting that money, and us getting it just seems, I don't know, it seems interesting. I'm not sure that I've ever heard anything like that. I mean, maybe you all have, and it's just something that I'm not aware of.
So we're raising our rates to cover our costs.
Okay.
And believe me, there's not a profit right now in recycle, as you can hear from our stories and in my message. And we have been on the losing end, but we are truly trying to be a partner in our communities, because if I was coming and trying to make money, we're not trying at this point to make money. We believe, Republic believes in a blue planet. We preach blue, but we believe in a blue planet, and we don't want to chase off recycling. We're not wanting people to drop recycling.
Agreed.
We just,
And I don't think that our residents want that either.
right, and we just, in building and investing in this multi-million-dollar recycle plant in Plano, where some of our competitors are closing their doors day after day in plants, we don't want to see recycle stop. So we are trying to cover our costs right now, and that is our intention. So we're not right now trying to make a profit in recycling. We're trying to cover our costs. So there's not a profit right now to be made. The intent of the amendment is in the future, we're simply stating we are a partner, and when and if there's to be made a profit, we will share this with you. At this point, just like there is on the hauling side, we want to cover our costs. That's all we're asking for at this point.
So you're basically still supplementing your costs, and
With your solid
we've made
waste.
these changes if the environment moves back to what it was, and all of a sudden prices return back to what they were, and all of a sudden at that point there is a profit.
Correct.
Then at this point, we'd be happy to share that with you. Okay.
Correct.
And what we can do is, for example, after the storms that occurred recently, the city paid for extra pickups of storm debris. So if for some reason there does become an income from this, which I share her thoughts, I highly doubt it, but I do like the provision that it won't become more profitable for them. It would come to the town. What we can do then is use that in that account for providing those extra pickups when they're needed at that time. Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we have to be clear, they're a business, and they're in business to make money. It's just, it's our job to make sure it's not excessive for the town. And so I have no problem with you making a profit. We have to judge whether it's a reasonable amount for our
Sure.
citizens and for us to pay. And so I think that's our job, not to judge
Absolutely.
whether you make a profit. I want you to make a profit because you're a business, but to what extent I'm willing to pay for that, I think that's our decision to decide that.
True.
So Mayor Robin, I have a couple questions, actually statements as well, as I'm
Okay.
probably the guy that recycles everything. So I think in education processes, what is it that we recycle? Because I looked at a whole list of stuff of what we don't. It looks to me like the only thing that's recyclable now is water bottles. And that's an overstatement to the point. But I think if we're gonna stay green, and by the way, council, I'm not gonna be that guy that votes against green. That's my position. That's not where I'm going to be. So, however we work through this, that's just not where I am on the topic. However, I would like to know not exactly, but more clearly, what is it that we can recycle? Because if we need to be putting stuff in solid garbage and cutting back on recycling to the point of saving costs, then so be it. Let's do that. Wire hangers always baffles me. How in the world are we burying that instead of recycling that somehow? But to my point, what is it we're recycling? And then, actually, the really only question in all this for you is it required that every residence recycles, or can they opt out? Because I haven't heard that discussion. Can they opt out if they want? And then one more point.
Say that one more time, Alan.
Can the residents opt out of recycling? If you choose not to recycle, that's your capitalistic right, I suppose, that you don't have to recycle. Do you have to pay that cost to recycle? Do you have to pay that every residence to do that? That's question one. Can you answer that one? I don't know. That's really a question.
Do you want me to start answering? Yes.
Just that
So
one.
yes,
Then I have a
every
follow-up.
resident pays. That's part of the
Regardless if they
model.
recycle or
Right.
not,
Correct.
everybody's gonna pay.
Correct.
So that, to my point, to the second question, I did some weird math on the blue recycle buckets, and I've paid $500 for my container, the same container I've had for 10 years. I just,
Go to Home Depot and buy one.
well, that doesn't appear to be an option, because if you have to pay the cost, you got to pay the $4.
Recycle bin is free. Your garbage can, you can buy your own. I haven't paid 1 penny.
The breakdown here shows $4 and something cents a month for the recycle container.
So I can interject.
Okay.
So I can start with the last question.
There's only
So
two
the
questions,
recycle container's free. The trash container you can rent from us, or you can go to Home Depot and purchase your own under the guidelines and ordinances of Sunnyvale. So that helps with your math.
So the trash can is what we're renting, but not the recycle can?
Correct, under
Okay.
the contract. I will add that if you rent your cart from us and the container lid breaks or the wheel breaks or something happens, we do replace that, or we come out and repair it, but that is just that note.
Mine went through a tornado. I'm still using the same one.
Yes, well, there you are. You may, some.
Okay, that's okay.
Hey, some
I'm
of
just
them
curious.
we
I just wanna
replace
know. Okay,
multiple times.
thank you for clarifying.
And yes, under the guidelines, everyone in the town pays for recycle, and they have the option when they move in. We have some residents that are like, don't deliver a cart, I'm not going to use it, and that's their choice.
But they're still gonna
But
pay
it's
for it.
part of the basic service
Okay.
for residents. And then, as
list
in
of what?
education and the list of items. So on the last slide in your packet, there is a website, republicsimplified.com. It was a site that we were using internal, and Republic has offered it now publicly for any vendor, any city, our city or not. It's a list of different items of communication to be used, door hangers, stickers. I brought a few flyers that are from there that we can use to send out in a water bill. We can use on Facebook or social media to drop in some information. We can work with your communications department or person and partner with to get some, to work on a campaign to get that information out. We found that sometimes it's not really good to send out a whole lot of information versus, little blurbs of, did you know, right now aluminum is the #1 profitable or impactful footprint item to recycle versus, glass or some of these plastics. Aluminum is the most beneficial item. So it's just getting those pieces of education out, because if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Robin. I
Absolutely.
think it's a big education for everybody, including myself, because I thought you recycled everything, including that junk mail you get.
Well, and you do, we just don't send it to China anymore.
And we're paying more for it.
We're paying more for everything. So,
Okay, that's fine.
but yes, you do recycle your junk mail, we just don't send it to China. That's just not our options anymore, but yes, you do.
You're taking too much of what you do.
I can't recycle coat hangers anymore.
Mr. Clerk?
So, Robin, thank you very much for
Yes, sir.
for walking us through this. Is this related at all to our current trade war with China? Like, as the trade war improves, will this maybe open up? Can there be some changes?
This started before the trade war, and we don't see that it's related, and we don't anticipate it being affected by the trade war,
Right.
but I don't have a answer for that, truthfully.
okay.
Hadn't this been the trend with China for the last couple of years? This
Ye-
is not in the
it's-
last
Yeah,
months.
this started almost 2 years ago, about 18, 20 months ago.
Right,
And
okay.
so,
This is part of their environmental cleanup, clean environment, that
the
type of thing,
contamination,
right?
yeah. So this started, and they went from the 3% down to about 1%, and then they started cutting back more and more on what they would accept.
Right, okay. Okay, so it sounds like we've known about it a while. What is the long-term plan, maybe for Republic, and/or what are the competitors doing? Because this is obviously a issue that every town and city are having, and basically, what do we do with our waste? Are we trying to get other countries to buy it still? Are we, what are we doing?
So everyone is looking for other resources, other options on where, obviously Malaysia was one of the options, because they opened their doors for everyone at first, and then quickly found out that they were not a resource. It wasn't as easy as they thought. So there's a couple in the U.S. that are setting up and trying to get ready to take on some of that product. And we, as a large company, have been blessed on the side that being a large company, we have more buying power. Some of the smaller mom and pop companies that are taking some of the competitor cities have had to go to the cities and ask to landfill some of their products because they don't have a place to take those items. Some of my competitors have shut doors of their recycle centers and not able to take it because they've had bales of product lined up outside of their recycle centers and they have nowhere to take it. So we have not had that here as of yet because we have been fortunate to have relationships with vendors here and buyers to take our product. So long-term, we are continuing to forge with big buyers and purchasers, and of course looking for local U.S. companies for the long run.
And is this Plano operational right now?
It absolutely is. We would love to have you guys up anytime that y'all would love to do a tour. It has a huge learning center. We have Boy Scouts and schools come through. It's, as beautiful as a recycle center is, I know y'all love recycle, but yes, we'd love to have you up anytime. Just give me a call.
Right, okay, excellent. And I agree, I think we need some education on what we should recycle. If there are changes, maybe better ways to recycle what we can and what we can't. And with what we can, just maybe how to do it. Wash out milk jugs, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And it's always helpful.
We'll work with your administration.
Thank you.
So I want to come back to Mr. Wade for questions. So the residential is increasing, but commercial is not, right?
It is increasing by the amount that's allowed in the contract, which is 3%.
So that's the automatic increase.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So just to clarify, we're not seeing that increase on our paperwork. It's there, but we're not seeing it because both schedules that we're looking at have the same rates on it. But what you're saying is those rates that are on both schedules have been increased by 3% over last year's approved rates. So we could go back and see that increase.
Correct.
Okay.
You don't see it in those two comparisons.
I think the important thing for me is that we've been paying for recycling all along. It's not been separately stated.
Right.
But if you analyze this, we're paying $14.27 now, and they call it solid waste collection. It would be unconscionable to believe that now solid waste collection is only $10.67. So obviously we've been paying for recycling because it wouldn't go down. Solid waste collection wouldn't go down. So we should see some profit out of this because obviously they were making profit or they wouldn't be doing it. That profits mean not using the landfill or selling product. So now we're going to pay for it. We're just going to separately state it. It's some portion of this $6 and we should see some profit too, in my opinion. I'm just disappointed that that's the way they have proposed this. We were paying for it all along and just didn't realize it, in my opinion.
So Susan, let me ask you here, the action is, so do we talk about both the commercial and residential, or we only talk about the residential here? Because commercial is automatic
Just the
adjustment.
amendments.
I'm sorry?
Just the amendment to the current contract. It says we will need to act upon a request by Republic for an amendment to the current contract for solid waste and recycling services and the fee increase. So that would be the motion, is the amendment that's in here. And Councilmember Wade's correct. It's the rate has always had this recycling baked into it. And then on the back side of this sheet in your agenda is where it actually breaks it out so you could see the line item changes. But in this rate, you'll see below it, it's baked into the original rate. So it just, they're calling it out at this time.
But just to clarify that in my recollection, we were recycling for the benefit of the green folks and for the benefit of Republic. they were selling the product, commodity, and benefiting from it to supplement our rates. Now they're not, so we're going to pay for it.
So one item I want to bring up, Susan, what, are there changes to our services? Does anything change, or is it going to be the exact same? I thought maybe the bundles could be a foot longer or something?
No,
No
the
changes?
service is the same that
Service
it's
exact
been.
same?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at page 58, it says bulk brush collection 2 times per week, limit of 3 cubic yards per collection. So that's this page, Kevin.
Right, so, okay, so it's the exact same, so the rate increase is just covering the extra costs?
Yeah, I think so. If you need additional services, you know, that's something we can work with the public, but that's not at the same rate. That's different. So, Mr. Wade, are you recommending a change to what they're saying? I understand you're.
No, I'm not recommending a change. I'm frustrated with the fact of the way it's been disclosed to us and the fact that it looks like we're putting the burden on our taxpayers, on our citizens. I'm just frustrated with that.
Okay.
I'm not, you know, it's a 4.3% increase. It's not 1.5 per the contract. It's only $2.40 a month plus the tax. So it's not terrible burden. We'll find that it is some people, and there's some people that are now going to figure out they're paying $6 to recycle and they don't want to recycle. You know, I
Yep,
appreciate what
there
Larry's
are-
doing,
there are
but I'm
people who
certainly
don't
not
want
the
to
great
recycle, yeah.
recycler. And apparently newsprint doesn't make much difference, so I'm probably going to stop doing newsprint. You know, that's the primary thing we have. We don't have the glass bottles. But I think I think there'll be some folks that say, I don't want to recycle at $6 a month. And we don't have a real choice in that.
Yeah, we don't.
Mayor, is there, or staff actually, Susan, did y'all look at the possibilities? I'm not saying this is desirable. Did you look at the possibility of reducing our garbage collection from twice a week to once a week? And would that change it appears it would change our monthly cost based on what Forney and some of the other cities are doing.
So we did look at the different, we picked several cities that were on our, you know, the same study cities that we benchmark against. And there were varying rates, but I think it was kind of felt in the subgroup that we were communicating with that was kind of something that we really didn't even want to look at, that people want to keep 2 times a week. And it's a great benefit that we have it for the rate that we have, because benchmark cities we looked at, some of them have once a week and are paying rates even higher than we're paying under these new rates. So that was my comment at the very beginning, that when we looked at what other cities were getting from a variety of vendors, we felt like we were getting a good rate for the service level that we have. And, you know, we did look at expanding our bulky item, but in the end, we felt like those who need that expanded can call Republic and ask for extra pickup. So we didn't want to pass that cost on to everyone. We chose to let it stay with those who needed the extra service and keep the level of bulky item pickup at what it was, which is honestly really great, and that you can do it every single time that Republic comes through. You can have bulky item on, you know, on the curb with some parameters. But compared to what other cities had, it was a very good level of service at a very good rate comparatively.
Mr. Wade?
Edification of that, Councilmember Allen, we did a survey about 2 years ago about 1 time versus 2 times and so forth, and it was overwhelming that they wanted to keep the 2 time a week. So it seems like our citizens are used to that. They like it.
Right, and I'd say, I think the citizens are happy to recycle. I think they want to recycle, you know, so it's disappointing, it's extra cost, and, you know, roughly $6 per household, but, you know, what I'd like to see is, instead of us getting the profit, maybe that actually being a rebate, if we ever start to, if the numbers change and just have it more as a rebate or just basically decreasing cost. I think that would be going right back to the citizens.
So we'll maybe put it one of our performance metrics where we're tracking this so it's very clear what money we get from this on a monthly
Excellent.
basis.
Excellent. Okay, council, additional discussions on this topic. Any question for Robin? Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay, can I have a motion with respect to agenda item 6?
Make a motion to approve agenda item 6 as presented.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Finch
I'll second.
and second by Mr. Clark to approve agenda item number 6 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Are there additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed? Motion passed 7-0. Thank you once again. Moving on to agenda item number 7, that is to discuss, consider, and act upon Ordinance 19-20, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of Town of Sunnyvale, Texas, Tax Note Series 2019, specifying the terms and features of said note, levying a continuing direct annual ad valorem tax for the payment of said note, and resolving other matters incident and related to the issuance, sale, payment, and delivery of said note, including the approval and execution of a paying agent registrar agreement and a note purchase agreement, and providing an effective rate. That be Ms. Town Manager?
Yeah, I'm sorry, a lot of me tonight. So, just real briefly, I know you all are aware of what this is for, but for the benefit of those who are watching from home, I think one of the very first assignments when I came on board back in February was to work with Leslie and a consultant team to look at what we were going to do for providing for public safety for our community. We appointed a citizens committee and hired a consultant team to do an evaluation, and ultimately, the citizens committee recommended standing up our own police department. The council has taken several actions towards that, passing a resolution, passing an ordinance. We've put money in the budget for operation costs for a police department. We have been working with the city of Mesquite and the city of Garland to work on future dispatching services. So a lot of work has gone into starting to stand up our police department, including we did post for our police chief position. We received 96 applications. The subcommittee met and pared that down to 7, and we'll be interviewing at the end of this month for that position, and that person will really be at the forefront of getting our department stood up. So a lot of exciting things. This is one more step in that process. In your packet, there was a Gantt chart that showed, a very high-level flow chart showing what all of the steps were and where we're at with implementation. So this step is to issue tax notes for the all the equipment that we're going to need to establish the department. Everything from weapons to bulletproof vests to radios, vehicles, all the way up to, and dispatch, and all the way up to a facility that they would operate out of. So Eric Maha, who is our financial advisor, is here tonight. I'm going to ask him to go ahead and come up in the hot seat over there, and he can answer any questions about the tax notes that you have. But the tax rate that you proposed to us that will be advertised was inclusive of these tax notes. That was what added to the additional INS in our rate. So Eric's been amazing to work with us through all of these projects, and just want to turn it over to him to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Good evening and welcome. You may turn that on.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. As mentioned, Eric Maha with Hilltop Securities. And there's a packet of information coming around. As Ms. Guthrie mentioned, the item before you tonight is approval of an ordinance that would, in essence, sell the tax notes to a bank. About a week ago, the town received bids from various banks throughout the state and throughout the country to purchase the tax notes, and we've summarized that information here for you tonight. Real quickly, starting on page 2, I wanted to highlight the terms. Has everybody received the packet? Okay. So on page 2, we've highlighted the terms of the tax notes. In total, the amount is $3.56 million. That produces $3.5 million for the project costs. Semi-annual payments, similar to the town's existing debt. First payment will be scheduled for February of 2020. This is in line with the budget projections and amounts Ms. Hopkins went over earlier. Final payment, you may recall from past meetings, tax notes by statute are limited to a 7-year repayment. So final payment on the tax note is scheduled for February 15, 2026. The interest rate proposed and currently drafted into the ordinance, and we have a summary of the bids on the next page, is a 1.8%. The tax notes will be callable at any time. There would be a premium associated with that, but you would have the flexibility to repay those early if you choose to do so. Page 3, this is a summary of the bids that were received last week. In total, 8 banks bid on the tax notes, and you can see some of the banks had various options, and typically the main option that differs between the banks is the call feature. You'll see that labeled in the middle column, the call feature, meaning when or if the town could repay that note early. Some of the banks said non-callable. For example, the lowest interest rate, you'll notice, was Chase Bank at a 1.73%, but the town would not have the option to repay it early if you choose to do so. You'd have to pay it to maturity for that 7-year period. The bank that's being proposed is Bank of Texas. There on the bottom, towards the bottom. Bank of Texas submitted 2 bids, 1.8%, and that was the one that I mentioned would be callable anytime. And so we compared the Bank of Texas bid at the 1.8% to the Chase Bank bid at the 1.73%. And the difference was about $1,000 a year for the 7-year period. So you're paying about $1,000 more a year to have that flexibility to pay it off anytime if you choose to do so. And then the other bids you can see were close, but Bank of Texas did have the lowest interest rate with that call feature. Page 4, that's a sample of the payment schedule. As mentioned, you'll make semi-annual interest, annual principal payments starting next February. So for fiscal year 20, the budgeted payment is $470,895. We have closing scheduled for September 10th. That would be the date the town would receive the funds. And then the last page, page 5, you may have seen schedules similar to in the past. Page 5 is what we call our tax impact analysis, looking into the future. We have the property value assumptions that have been used in past analysis, column B, existing debt supported by the property tax rate, column C, and then we have the payments on the tax notes, columns E, F, and G, and then on the far right column, we have the calculated INS tax rate for existing debt plus the tax notes. And for example, that brings the INS tax rate slightly under 10 pennies or 10 cents for fiscal year 20, as Ms. Hopkins mentioned earlier in the presentation. So, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. You do have the ordinance here before you tonight to approve sale to Bank of Texas at those terms.
Council, I'm going to take public comments at this time. If anyone from the public would like to comment for or against this ordinance, please come forward. No one is coming forward, so I'm going to close the public comment section. Council, any question for Eric or staff?
Quick question, Susan. I think I'm probably missing something, but I see in our summary, I think it's a 2.8 million of tax notes, and this represents 3.56. So I'm curious, what am I missing?
There, at a prior meeting, we amended that amount because there was some questions about what the actual costs were going to be. And in discussing with the financial advisor and with Liz, there was, some concern about how accurate our numbers were, and we didn't want to get in a situation where we didn't have the adequate funds. So kind of I think the discussion was at that time is to go ahead and issue them at this higher amount. And if we didn't end up needing that amount, the way the wording in the language of the ordinance and the issuance is, it would allow for public safety use. And you have already authorized the purchase of a fire truck, and that fire truck was coming into us in December, and we were just going to set that up on lease with our, replacement plan, paying the payment on that. So this allows us the flexibility, if we don't need it for equipment for police, that it can be used under public safety to purchase that fire truck.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm in favor of that.
So 60,000 is what? What is that 60,000?
That would be the financing costs.
That's right, okay.
Yes, sir. And to the extent those come in less, the additional amount would go to the town's construction account on that closing date, September 10th.
Eric, I have one question. Are we still using 350,000 as the average house?
Yes, sir. I think the last estimate was slightly below that from DCAD, but I don't know if I saw the most recent figure, but I think that would be a good estimate. Yes, sir.
We're thinking over here that we're using 377, but that's just,
377.
that's what we're thinking, so.
And that's based on DCAT's number?
376,990.
Council, any additional questions for Eric or Ms. Hopkins? Susan, remind me again, this is an ordinance. Do we need 2 readings or 1 reading?
2.
2 readings.
Actually, for the
Is it tax
state
notes?
statute allows 1 reading for, and that's precedent for what the town's done in past debt issuance.
Okay.
Tax notes and certificates
apologize.
require just 1 reading of the ordinance.
The home rule charter, does it, Mark, does that limit that home rule charter or?
I don't think we changed that.
Okay,
It was just budgets, I think.
okay.
So is this ordinance that's in a packet different from the ordinance that's on our table tonight?
Yes, sir. It just got more details filled in.
Okay, so any material changes?
It was the final one that Kristen sent with all of the numbers filled in.
The final ordinance will have the interest rate, the purchaser, and then the final maturity amounts filled into it.
One more time?
The state statute, I have it. It's, well, we vetted that question with bond counsel, and in all situations, the state's, its government code would trump any town or city charter.
So 1 is enough?
Yes, sir. It's government code 30, and I'm not an attorney. I can read it off.
Okay. Is there a special language to be read or just we can just approve agenda item 7 as presented? Okay. Ready? Okay, can I have a motion with respect to agenda item number 7?
Motion to approve agenda item number 7 as presented.
Motion made by Councilmember Freeman. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Clark to approve agenda item number 7 as presented. Everyone heard the motion? Any other additional discussions? All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Thank you, Eric, appreciate you. Thank you, Ms. Liz, appreciate you. Moving on to the mayor and council portion of the agenda. That's the mayor and council request for future staff updates and agenda items. I think there are 2 items from August 5th. One from Councilmember Allen. I know staff has sent out some information. Do you want to further discuss it?
No, sir. We just wanted to
questions?
acknowledge that
Okay.
Councilmember Allen requested that information. Analysis was done and emailed to council. And then the second item was a request from Councilmember Freeman to review the town's tree ordinance. And we just wanted to comment that it's now on our project list, and we have staff pulling similar ordinances from other communities, so we can do an assessment on if it's similar or different, and then we can move forward with that on your recommendation.
That sounds perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khatri. Council, are there additional requests for future updates or agenda items?
Mayor and Susan, I just want to thank you for the data you sent out. It was very comprehensive, and thank you very much for that.
Okay, if nothing else, now the time is, what's the time, Ms. Charlotte? Time is 8:27, so we're going to adjourn the regular town council meeting of Town of Sunnyvale for August 12th. See you next Monday.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
Yes, sir. So